Desi with Highway to Heel.
And I'm Jeremy with Full of Sit.
And today we're going to get you guys started on teaching your dog a down.
That's right, so stay tuned.
Wicca's going to help us out.
Watch the video. We're going to get Wicca out here doing some downs. Desi's going to go over how she teaches it. I'm going to go over how I teach it, which is pretty much the same way. And hopefully we'll get you guys going on teaching your dog how to lay down.
Awesome. Enjoy.
Cool.
Alright, so Wicca is she's got a little bit of obedience on her already. She's a little rusty. We're going to be tuning that up a little bit and in the process showing how we actually begin teaching a down. And you'll notice in the beginning we're not really actually saying the word. With Wicca it's probably going to look really nice, but if your dog has never done it, it's probably going to be really messy. So we don't want to name something that's messy. We want it to look real pretty. So our goal right here is creating muscle memory for the dog. Once it looks really good, then we'll talk about adding a name to it. Wicca. Good girl. Chompy. So you're going to take your food in your hand, cover it up with your thumb, so she can't be an opportunist and sneak it out. The idea is if you can control the dog's head, you can control the body. So if I can take the food to her face and bring it down to the ground, the rest of her body should follow. Wicca. What's important? Yes, good girl. Good job. First mistake that a lot of people make that I see is they'll take it, they'll show it to the dog, Wicca, and she kind of got up there. If you leave them too fast, if you leave the dog too fast and they don't know what you're actually asking them to do, they're probably going to get up. Wicca. Good girl. Good job. Once she's down, her elbows hit the ground, I mark it with a yes. Some people use a clicker, and then I'll release the food. Good girl. Good girl. Dog's chompy, Jeremy.
I know. She got no manners.
No. So with Wicca, it already looks pretty. Hey, you missed it. At that point, if we were able to get several repetitions that look really nice and the dog is just kind of going straight down, elbows hit the ground, there's no hesitation, there's no confusion, the butt's not coming up, they're not losing the lure, which again is the food in your hand, that's the point that we would start to name it. Sit. The important thing when you're naming it is not to add your verbal with your physical. The physical would be your lure. You do that, best I can describe it is it's just a funny noise that the human's making and the word doesn't actually mean anything to the dog. So we want her to hear it, and we want her to kind of know, okay, that works for me. So if I could get her facing me and not her dad, sit. Keep going. So I tell people if your timing is really bad, put your hand behind your back. Say the word out loud, repeat it in your head. That way you're not accidentally saying down and moving at the same time, which a lot of people do. So it would look kind of like this if she was ready to get the word to it. Wicca. Down. And she already knows, so I can't really show you fully. So I'm going to say a different word besides down. I'm just going to say shoe. She doesn't know what shoe means. We're going to pretend that's her down cue. Wicca. Shoe. And then you lower it down. So I want to get her attention first, make sure she knows I'm talking to her. And then I'll start adding the word. If you do that 50 or 60 times, your dog should start to learn what the word means. Good girl. Good girl. Nice job. So then we want to talk about at what point do we start actually adding leash pressure to the down. Once the dog knows the word and we're certain that she does. Wicca, down. Wicca, down. Good girl. So she knows what it means, so now I can start introducing leash pressure. I'm going to do it real gently at first so the dog understands what I'm asking. Sit. Good girl. Most people are going to come in like this and say, Wicca, down, and follow those two together. Sit. I like to actually use my foot so my face isn't in the dog's face, and I'm also removing that body language of bending over, which is a cue to the dog. So it'd be kind of Wicca, down. So the leash pressure is pretty gentle, but she feels it, so she's going to start understanding what it means. Sit. try to add that before I bring in my lure. If my timing is good. Ready? Down. Girl. And then eventually phase out the lure altogether. The reason that we add leash pressure is because if the dog decides they don't want to comply to what you're asking them to do, we can then turn it into a consequence. Sit. So if I was asking her down and she didn't want to, I could say no, down. And I could put her in a down, assuming that I don't have a bag of hot dogs on my hip. That's it.
All right, so Desi did a really good job of explaining how to teach down. The only thing I think really that she didn't go over that I do differently is I teach it down from 2 different positions. So the dog has to know how to lay down from a sit, and they also have to know how to lay down from a standing position. The reason I teach it from both positions is because later on in the more advanced obedience, a lot of the exercises that we do are done in motion, or some people call it out of motion, meaning the dog's going to be walking and we're going to give them the command to down, and we don't want the dog to sit first and then lay down. We want the dog to go from walking straight into a down. So I actually teach the dog to lay down from a standing position first, and then I move to down from a sitting position because that's just the easier of the two. And I like to teach all the hard stuff first and then come back and teach the easy stuff. If not, the dog tends to rely on the easy stuff as kind of a crutch, and they figure out it's easy. It's an easier way to get hot dogs or get treats, whatever you're using for a reward, and that's kind of what they want to do. So when I first start teaching a dog down, I do exactly like Desi explained. I just make sure that I can get the dog doing a down first. And when I'm teaching a dog a down from a standing position, I get the dog up and I get the dog moving forward towards me a little bit, and then I go down and in towards the dog at a 45-degree angle. And the way I explain it to my clients is you're trying to go from their nose to their toes with the food. And it should look something like this. Come on. Yes! As soon as her butt's on the ground and her elbows are on the ground, because that's the criteria for a down, as soon as she meets that criteria, I say yes, and all I do is I just move my thumb out of the way and she gets the food. I do several repetitions of that. Let me get back to the here because I don't know if you guys can see me. All right, so I do several repetitions of that, and I think she's got to go potty. Until I'm sure that the dog understands what down means, and then like Desi, I start to transition from a lure with the food into turning the food into an actual reward, which means the food comes after the dog has complied or met the criteria that we're expecting them to do. And I'm going to take a break and let her go potty. Okay, so I teach just like Desi does. I get the dog doing it, and then I use a lot of food to lure the dog to get them into position in the beginning, but eventually we have to change from a lure to a reward, and then we have to start phasing out the reward and making it not a constant reward. And that's getting into reward schedules and everything else that I'm not going to discuss in this video. So step 1, getting the dog to down from a standing position. You got to get the dog's attention, okay? If they're not looking at you, they're probably not paying attention to you. So you see she keeps looking off to her left there. So if I was to ask her to do something now, she may not do it because she's not paying attention to me. So I want to first get the dog up and moving and engaged with me, and then move right into a down, okay? Whee, good girl. Let's go. Woo. Down. Yes. Good girl. And then I use F-R-E-E to, I say it, I don't spell it out, to allow the dogs to get up. Free. And now I can reset and do another repetition. Wake up. And she anticipated what I was going to ask her to do. Free. Wake up, free. Down. Yes. Good girl. So I don't start introducing the word down until I'm pretty sure that the dog is going to do it. And then I always mark yes as soon as the dog meets the criteria. Free. And then I always say free before I let the dog back up. When I start using leash pressure versus food, Desi likes to step on the leash. I like to handle the leash with my hand that's opposite the dog. So there's reasons that I do all this stuff. I'll take my right hand and I choke way up here on the leash like that, and I will pull straight down under the dog's neck. And what that does is frees up my left hand so I can put pressure down on the back of the dog's shoulders and kind of push them a little bit into a down. And then once they're there, once she's met the criteria, her butt's down and her elbows are on the ground, then I can say yes and I can reach in my treat pouch and get her food as a reward now instead of a lure, which is a bribe. Wicca. Down. Yes. So again, I say yes, and the dog gets the treat, and then free, and she can get up. Okay. I use that method mostly for teaching a down from a sit position, just because it's kind of hard to have the dog up and moving towards you and then grab the leash and pull down and push on their shoulders all at the same time. So it takes a little bit more coordination handling the leash to do that. So it's all about timing, okay? The marker word and the reward should all happen about within 1.3 seconds. So from the time the dog meets the criteria for a down, we say yes, so we mark that behavior, and then we've got 1.3 seconds to get food to the dog, or the reward to the dog, whatever we're using, toy or whatever. The big thing is most dogs don't like to lay down because it puts them in a little bit of a vulnerable position. So a lot of people that adopt older dogs that have had no training, they really don't like to lay down, and they feel like you're forcing them to do something, so they want to resist a little bit. And that's where just being consistent really comes into play. So again, I treat an adult dog that's never had any training just like I would a puppy. Okay, so I want to make sure that I can get them doing it first by luring them around with food if I have to, and then I start putting a little bit of pressure on them, and then the dog understands, okay, this is something that you're going to make me do, and hopefully they start doing it on their own. So Desi and I teach pretty much the same way. I think I'm just a little bit sometimes harder on dogs than she is, but that's just how I teach. Alright guys, so thanks for watching the video. I hope that was helpful. Hopefully you guys picked up some tips on how to get your dog to lay down a little more reliably. I think that's one of the biggest issues that Desi and I get requests on is.
Feel free to drop some comments if you have any questions too. Don't forget to like this video, give it a share.
Yep. Like it, share it, ring the bell.
Alright guys, see you later.
Adios.
Jazz hands.